If you're measuring hip external and internal rotation at 90 degrees of hip flexion, there's a couple of things that we need to clarify. At 90 degrees of hip flexion, the musculature below the level of the trochanter maintains its external rotation capabilities. If I have a deficit of internal rotation at 90 degrees of hip flexion, then I know I have concentric orientation below the level of the trochanter. So a lot of times, in addition to seeing the loss of internal rotation capabilities at 90 degrees of hip flexion, we're also going to see limited toe touches, limited straight leg raises, or anything that would require eccentric orientation of that musculature during hip flexion. One of the simplest activities that you could use would be a toe touch variation using hip internal rotation early in the toe touch, which would effectively reduce the concentric orientation of the external rotators below the level of the trochanter and allow a normal hinging activity to take place. A second ball squeeze at the bottom of the toe touch will further enhance my ability to eccentrically orient the external rotators below the level of the trochanter and will ultimately enhance my internal rotation capabilities at 90 degrees of hip flexion. So we can use something as simple as a toe touch activity to help us reduce the external rotation concentric orientation below the level of the trochanter. All we have to do is apply a couple of modifications that will further enhance our ability to reduce that external rotation concentric orientation. So I've got a slant board here, and what we're going to do is we're going to elevate the toe relative to the heel. As we bend forward, if our foot was flat, we would actually move towards plantar flexion, which would move us towards an earlier propulsive phase. What I want to do in this case is keep us in mid to max propulsion, so I can maximize the nutation element of the sacrum, which will actually help reduce that external rotation activity. So I'm going to take my ball, I'm going to put it between my knees, and I'm going to move my feet close enough together to where I can actually feel pressure on the ball at all times. Now, I'm going to stay heel heavy, and I'm going to exhale as I move through the range of motion as I move downward, and I'm going to be exhaling as I come up. So I'll take my breath at the top, I'll exhale through the toe touch, I'll take another breath at the bottom, and exhale all the way back up. So again, what this is going to do, it's going to emphasize my ability to nutate my sacrum as I bend. It's going to reduce the external rotation, concentric orientation below the level of the trochanter. So many times I can do something as simple as a single leg Romanian deadlift to reduce the external rotation, concentric orientation below the level of the trochanter. But in many cases, your client or your athlete can't quite control the pelvis enough to truly capture the appropriate position at the bottom of the single leg RDL. To capture the appropriate position, we can use a 2-foot contact variation of an RDL that will allow us to capture the mid or max propulsive position to help us maintain that nutated position at the bottom of the single leg RDL. So here's how I'm going to set it up. I'm going to take my slant board and I'm going to elevate my toe relative to my heel. This is going to help me maintain my mid to max propulsive stance. That's going to allow me to capture nutation at the bottom of the RDL. I'm going to advance my right foot forward, and this is going to help to push my hips back to maintain my hinging capability, which is again sacral nutation. I'm going to take my kettlebell and I'm going to aim for the space in front of my left foot and to the left of my right foot. As I bend forward, because I've got my second foot on the ground, I'm left side heavy, but I'm balanced, which is going to allow me to maintain my hinge position as I bend forward. As far as breathing goes, I'm going to take my breath at the top so I can stabilize my axial skeleton. I'm going to make sure that I pivot around the hip joint to make sure that I'm performing a hinging strategy, which will help me maintain nutation as I bend.